This is Bottled Up with Daniel Posner, owner of Grapes the Wine Company, a fine wine retailer in White Plains, New York. The Wall Street Journal called me one of the most influential wine retailers in America. Here to remind you that wine does not have to be complicated, and it definitely doesn't have to be snobby. Bottled Up gives you a fresh idea on what to drink, insight into the new trends, and a real look inside the wine industry. It's not about tannins or tasty notes you can't pronounce. It's about enjoying wine with a fresh spin. Hey everyone, welcome to Unlucky episode number 13 of the Bottled Up podcast. I am your co-host, Daniel Posner. Today I have a super special co-host guest, someone I respect a whole heck of a lot. I have Michael Correra with me. Everybody that does not know Michael, which is probably no one, Michael is the longtime owner of Towne Wines and Spirits, a fine wine shop in Brooklyn, New York. He is also the executive director of the Metropolitan Package Store Association. Michael does tremendous work for New York wine retailers, family-owned and operated businesses going back generation after generation. We have differing viewpoints on the wine business, and we have very similar viewpoints on the wine business, and that's what makes the world go around. But seriously, it's a pleasure to welcome Michael here. So welcome to Bottled Up, Michael.
Thank you for having me, Dana. Great to be here.
What did I leave out that you want to add that someone really needs to know about you?
I think you got it covered when it comes to the wine and liquor business. I'm multi-generational. This is my third generation I'm in the wine and liquor business. And it's a fascinating industry. I've seen so many, as you've seen, so many changes evolving. We have so much to talk about.
We do. And this episode is going to go 4 hours. So everyone grab a seat, grab something to drink, preferably 150 proof and up. And we're going to begin with a question from the audience. And it's going to come as no surprise to our millions of listeners that we have a question from Kim from Brooklyn. Here's her question. And it's so fitting for Michael Correra of Michael. What is your favorite wine to pair with pasta, Mr. Correra?
So I am all over the place when it comes to wine. I appreciate everything. I had a lovely 2 different settings in a meal, and we were visiting Italy, and we were at Fueti San Gregorio. We had Campania region in the town area of Avellino. So we had a Serpico with a lovely lunch. I thought it was amazing, so exceptionally well balanced, not exceptionally high in alcohol. I think what consumers are looking for, I like it. I think it was a hot day. We were inside. We poured some of the vineyards. I couldn't have thought of something better.
So Michael was very specific about Avellino, which is in Campania that many of us might know. Fueti di San Gregorio, one of the OGs of the region. Serpico, very cool wine. I think it's 100% Aglianico. Vines go back, I think, up to like 150 years. You can see in the vineyards, right? As I recall.
It was a great photo of the vineyards and the vines, and these vines are so distorted and fascinating to me.
Yeah. Very cool. Very great wine, very historic, and that's awesome. So thank you, Kim. Thank you, Michael, for answering that question. I'll say my favorite traditional wine and pasta pairing is basically Sangiovese. I could go with a great Chianti Classico, and I say great, I could spend $15-20. I could spend more, but I feel like Sangiovese, specifically Chianti, is such a great pairing with pasta. It's so easy. Whether you're in Rome, you're in Florence, Siena, like it's so good. And throw in a whole pizza for like €4, and that works for me. So let's move on to bite, sip, and taste. And I'm gonna leave this one to you, Michael. Your most recent favorite overall bites of food?
So recent, I had an amazing meal at a restaurant I go to called Sociale. It's on Court Street in Cobble Hill, Carroll Gardens, right on the cusp, right on the edge. So they did this pork chop with roasted grape tomatoes. They did some radicchio and fennel sauteed with some apple cider vinegar. It was amazing, like bright, fresh, and sliced pork. It was a lovely meal. Even though it may sound a little heavy because it's a pork chop, it was a hot day. It was one of those spring, summer evenings, and I thought it was lovely.
So pork chop, Sociale in Brooklyn, specifically Cobble Hill. When you order a pork chop in a restaurant, how do you ask for it cooked?
I tell them, how would you eat it? So it has to be, it cannot be dry. I love it sliced like the way they do, at steakhouses, they'll do it with a porterhouse. I love it sliced off the bone. It was perfectly cooked. Perfect.
And perfect for me is I'm not afraid to ask for a little bit pinkish on a
Me
pork
too.
chop. A little bit pinkish. Like you said, you overcook a tuna, you can make tuna salad, but you overcook a pork and it goes in the garbage.
Yes.
There's nothing else you can do. It just dries out, like you said. It just awful taste.
Growing up, if you recall too, they used to overcook pork because they were
Yep.
afraid that it would give you trichinosis, remember?
Yep. Yep.
And especially as an Italian American, they would boil it practically and then roast it for fear. And I'm with you. Having that little bit of pink.
I'll tell you a fun fact about Daniel Posner. Daniel Posner grew up kosher. So we weren't worried about trichinosis from pork. So we just avoided pork. But starting when I got in college, I made up for that and started eating a whole heck of a lot of pork. But yeah, I mean, that was an avoidable food in my household. I love a pork chop. And my favorite pork chop to eat at home for anyone, you go to Warrensburg, New York, and you go to Oscar's Smokehouse and you get their smoked pork chops. You bring them home. They actually ship them to you. I think they'll vacuum seal. Oscar's pork chop is the way to go. Get it about 2 inches thick. You'll be very happy. You're welcome for that insider tip for everybody. What about favorite most recent sip?
Recently, I had a Nonino Amaro Spritz. And it was really simple. The lemon squeezed in there, a little bit of sparkling water, and the Nonino. And I love things like that. Warmer days, we're getting into that, obviously already into that season. I love bitter. I'm not a sweet guy myself. I like bitter.
I think you're a sweet guy, by the way.
Thank you.
I think you're a sweet guy. But, I know how everyone else feels about you.
I appreciate that. Well, I know you feel are very positive. So
I'm a positive guy. So look, and as we get into seasonalities, I'm a huge old fashioned guy, like lots of ice, lots of whiskey, definitely bitters go in there, but a few drops, whatever. I always say light on the sugar, heavy on the alcohol. Where are you though in the spritz front? Are you an Aperol spritz guy or not so much?
So Aperol is a little sweet for me.
Yeah,
I like Campari better because it's bitter. There's nothing that brings a smile to my face as a liquor retailer when we go out to on premise and seeing people order the spritzes that I know are fun. They're lighter in alcohol. Like we went out to dinner on the Upper East Side and saw a limoncello spritz walk by. It looked beautiful. She got one. Our guests joined us. We were at the bar for a moment. They both had two of them. And it's infectious when you see those walking around. A couple of years back, I was actually in Puglia on a beach, and Aperol was doing a sponsorship with you get a package and they give you tokens for Aperol Spritz, and you get a gazebo. Like a couple of chairs, and it was great. And like seeing everybody walk around in their nice bathing suits with these drinks. There's something fun about it.
It's good to see alcohol in the hands of children. That's where you're going, right? It's good. Yeah,
well, in Italy, it's not as illegal.
As illegal. But I hear you though. No, it's good. It's good to see happiness with alcohol, and I agree with you. On these days where, in the warmer days, like the alcohol on ice, totally a good thing and a welcome addition. What about favorite overall, most recent taste then?
Taste. So I have to swing back to Italy. I am very blessed to travel to Italy, friends, family. And so what I love is the authenticity of the local foods and the meals and the desire to have really clean, fresh products. And I believe that in the United States, as you just pointed out about that pork chop, there's a real opportunity here as well. We're in Italy. We went to a volcanic spa like 30 minutes away from Naples because that's where my cousin's wedding was. And there wasn't an American to be found there. It was beautiful. It was all authentic Italians. We went to like mud baths. So we ended up having lunch on the rooftop of this wonderful spa. And the man turned around to me and he said, everything's special, of course. And he had 6 or 7 things on the menu. An amazing buffalo mozzarella with crazy salad. They had a beautiful eggplant that was so delicately made eggplant, with the Parmesan cheese. And then they had a tuna special. So I said, how's the tuna? He pointed to the ocean, which is the bay, and said, that's how it is. And he brought it out probably a half an inch thick to a 3/4 of an inch thick. I could have been a sear on one side of each, salt, pepper, and a little, or maybe oregano. And that's my point is fresh ingredients, really bright, really clean. I couldn't have been happier. And we also shared a fruta de mar seafood salad, and we were all happy, the four of us. So.
I mean, that's an experience, right?
Yeah.
Feel like right on the water.
And Daniel, it cost us €60 for the four of us.
That's the most painful part
So,
of all of that conversation.
yeah.
Right. I mean, when you're replicating that meal in any of the boroughs besides maybe Staten Island, and you are 3x that, right? I mean, I was coming back from Italy one trip a bunch of years ago, and there was a couple next to me on the flight, and they were honeymooning in New York. And he was from southern Italy, in the pizza business down there. It was around 2000, probably 15 or 16, in that realm. And he wanted to try pizza in New York. And he was going through his computer or phone or whatever it was and showing me, he's like, these prices. He's like, I serve pizza in my family restaurant for €4. He's like, your pizza is 18
Right.
euros. I said, just do yourself a favor. Like, don't go out for pizza in New York. It's just going to
Disappoint.
I was like, don't go out for Napolitana pizza you're making at home. At least try New York pizza. Go out for a traditional New York slice.
Get a
And
slice.
get one for a few bucks. But like, and his wife, like, we just wanted to come and try. I was like, go out for steak, go out for seafood, like do something maybe with a New York edge that's not pizza, that you eat pizza at home for €4. Why are you going to come here and overpay for pizza?
And we had a bottle of wine with that. We had a bottle of Casa d'Ambra from Ischia, who was, I don't know, €14, something like crazy like that.
And taxes included and services included, right? So there was another trip we took to Italy with the 3 kids in 2015. And, it was a 10-day trip. We did Venice for a few days, and we were in a Tuscan villa for about 7 days. And my wife, Joy, was like, I don't know why we just don't move here. She's like, why don't we raise the kids here? And then we were driving past wineries. I remember in Maremma, we're doing a trip to the beach, and we're going through Maremma. She's like, why don't you just buy one of these wineries, Daniel? I was like, because, sweetheart, I don't know how to make wine. She's like, does it matter? I was like, it kind of does matter. But perhaps she was right. I mean, over 10 years later now, we're very happy, and kids are older and all that. But Italy is such a great spot to go with family or not family, just to enjoy that vibe, whether you're on the water or you're somewhere else. It's just beautiful. Everything is so, I don't want to say inexpensive is not the right word, but everything is so serviceable and manageable. And the service is great. The people are great. They want you there. It's a welcoming feeling. It's like the exact opposite of what sometimes you get if you go out to Bay Ridge or something, Right. All right. That's our Bite Sip Taste. Thank you, Michael, for participating. You were 10 out of 10 on that one. So the best part of our show is next, and what we are named for on Bottled Up. We call this next section the rant. The rant, for anyone new to our podcast, is designed for someone to tell us what is PMO, as the teenagers say, or pissing me off. Michael, what has you bottled up today about life or wine or me?
Well, we could talk about the wine and liquor business, since that's our common conversation, as we do talk about personal conversations as well.
We have nothing in common. Michael ate a lot of pork growing up. I grew up kosher.
We got somewhere. We found some common ground. But love to talk about the state of the industry. This is a constant conversation. I think it's an amazing business. I think that we have a lot of opportunity to improve our business. I think it needs to start. It certainly should be at the retailer, restaurant level, I'm sure. And I'm sure each tier has some ways to innovate. But when I think about what's happening this last month, the city of New York has basically decided to go on this campaign against alcohol, wine, and liquor, saying, if you have one drink, it's going to kill you. It's a complete campaign. I am mystified by this, and not to swing back to European lifestyle, but wine and liquor, obviously, I know you feel this way, and I feel this way, and many people in our industry, we do not want to see people abuse alcohol or get sick from it or become addicted to it or anything like that. We do realize it can be a drug and can be destructive, but it has been for centuries, millenniums, that this is part of people's lifestyle. Wine and liquor consumed in moderation, as I just pointed out. Aperol spritzes on the Puglia beaches, and a bottle of wine in a restaurant in Brooklyn, which we had a few of them with 9 people. Was amazing. We had a white and a red. We were at an Italian restaurant. We had a Barbera. We had a Dialba. We had a Gavi. They were reasonable. They were crisp. They had good acidity, and nobody abused it. So what I am mystified by is that the industry has not pushed back. And I feel, in my analysis of this industry, multi-decades that I've been involved in and also read about, that the industry, for some reason, even during Prohibition, pre-Prohibition, post, has basically just laid down and allowed people to trample over it. So I believe that the industry needs to do some studies, refute some of these things because I think they can be refuted. It seems the pendulum swings back and forth on this industry constantly. And I believe you have to get people to recognize that having a glass of wine or two or sharing a bottle with your friends over a 2 or 3 hour meal is not going to kill you or put you in a bad way. And as a matter of fact, I would sit here and argue that more people need to socialize and get out because I hear many people lonely and sad and depressed and popping pills that people are giving them for depression or smoking weed by themselves or things like that. And may I add, the city and the state have certainly allowed that particular business to become legalized, which fascinates me because what I'm hearing from, and I'm sure you're hearing about this, Daniel, when you talk to health teachers in schools, they're shocked at the amount of abuse with vaping and marijuana in there and all those different things. The amount of abuse of that product compared to when we were going to high school or college is like 20 times stronger than it is now. And I don't know anything much about this stuff other than what picks me off as I walk up and down the streets in New York City and I have to go to the dry cleaner afterwards because I smell of this stuff. And certainly we as liquor retailers are not condoning anybody should be walking around with an open package of alcohol. But this is what's happening with this product. For the city to turn around and claim that this is horrible for you and that even having a casual drink. So all the people that are coming for these soccer matches should not partake in the beer while they're watching the game. It's just crazy. What upsets me is that our industry, our leadership, and I've said this to CEOs of companies every time I get a chance, huge wineries, when are you going to push back? When are you going to market that these products, you don't feel like that's what you're peddling? As a guy who's been in the business a long time, I believe that we need gateway products that are comfortable and fun. And that's another thing is that we're so above all this, all of us, and all we want to do is talk snobbishly about wine and spirits and ultra premium and high-end wines and somms and almost making people uncomfortable about this product. Meanwhile, we're not doing these products justice. We're not doing...
So you're throwing a lot here. So I'm going to try to break it down and still finish the show in the next 42 days. So let's start from the beginning. You and I, especially you now, are in a unique spot where you are in a position of quote unquote power with Metropolitan Package Store Association on a relative scale, especially versus 99.9% of other retailers. So you can have these conversations, you can have these dialogues with people. And I've spoken in my previous years at NAWR, sitting on the board and as president and having hard conversations with people who have the influence here. So in regards to the pushback you're talking about on the health benefits of wine. What we should be promoting is the health benefits of wine that are real and have been proven real over years and years of studies. How do we get that front and center? And maybe just not even New York, but even on a more global level. You're talking World Health Organization, you're talking like federal government stuff, Surgeon General. How do we spin that back into a positive for our industry, our business, and our stores?
So personally, I think that needs to come from the companies that own these brands on a global scale. You have companies like Pernod, LVMH, Diageo, that I think are looking at how to grow their business by going after their competition. And I think they need to actually band together and say, we believe in this product. And we are going to do all these studies, do all this research, and make these things known and go after with a PR campaign and marketing campaign to raise this issue, bring it to a conversation, and get people on board.
And on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being the most likely that you see that happening, how do you rate that?
I'm not confident that that will happen at all. I'd say 1 or 2 because I have not seen them do it. And every time they get knocked in the mouth with this kind of rhetoric and conversation, they don't do anything about it. As we've seen, it's evident.
I've heard rumors of lawsuits that are bound to happen. I think up in Canada, they're already suing for health benefits against some companies up there. And we've been told in the United States to expect some of those companies you mentioned, and maybe some other bigger ones, to expect lawsuits to drop against them because they've quote unquote lied about the health benefits of wine. And it's unfortunate because you and I don't believe that to be true. I think there's science backing us that that's not true, but they have to defend themselves. And it's going to be trickier then to come out even the other way to actually then re-promote the benefits of wine, which they should have been promoting for the last 10, 20, 30, 40 years. So maybe we wouldn't get to this point. I think we just lost sight of that, which kind of leans into another part of that because wine has become this kind of glamorous product. And perhaps if we just stuck to the nuts and bolts, right, the real aspect of the socialization of why wine should be fun, why it needs to be a part of culture, why it needs to be on your dinner table, whether you're in Puglia or you're in Cobble Hill, right? It's a part of our cultural aspect. And so not promoting the overindulgence of the product, because we definitely don't want to do that, rather than just promote the benefits of such product, how it pairs with food really well, and how it's a nice cocktail on a warm day on the Upper East Side. And I think there is a lot of the infighting you mentioned. There's a lot of that consolidation, a lot of gobbling up. You get a brand that's successful, and all of a sudden wine company number A launches a successful brand, and wine company letter B tries to either A, gobble it up, or B, create their own. And then you have this vicious cycle of like, you end up with a saturated, which we've seen over the years, like the copycat years of Yellowtail, right?
Right.
How many companies tried to replicate Yellowtail Shiraz? How many companies have now tried to replicate Casamigos tequila, Grey Goose vodka? Earlier you're seeing, and it's not in a bad way to try to do it. I mean, you see it with White Claw was the originator of the RTD, and then you had High Noon come up, and now you have a lot like, whether it's craft whiskey, you see a lot of distilleries closing in Kentucky right now, right? There has to be an answer to get more people out there enjoying our product sensibly and responsibly, of course, but realizing that's time and place. And there is a time and place for wine, for alcohol, for spirits. And if cannabis is your thing, perhaps that too. I also don't enjoy the laissez-faire attitude we've taken these days as a community to allow people to just do that sort of thing out in the open. I have 3 children. They see it, they smell it, they know it. Whereas their father, who's been doing this now 26 years, wine is to be deemed worse than that. There has to be a level where we reach where there's some sort of middle ground where we realize this is here, it's here to stay. Like alcohol is not going away, right? I mean, it's not disappearing from our society. So we need to find, how do we all accept it in a positive way where we move forward and continue to enjoy it?
And interesting, Daniel, just to talk about, because let's face it, the growth of marijuana, we have to recognize, right, has taken share away from our industry, right? The dollars being spent legally.
Yeah.
Retail in New York was essentially every corner bodega has access to selling a pipe, and they could sell it to you for $100 and hand you a bag of weed. So there's a lot of that going on. There's an illegality that kind of cracked down on. Now supposedly they're rolling out these legal shops. But I don't know if you've noticed this, but I do. Look to the left and right. You'll see smoke coming out of people's cars. They're smoking while they're driving. Smelling.
Yeah, and that's the one I will say. A lot of people are just vaping nicotine, right? Like there is a lot of that in the car, and I get it. But I hear you though. There's a lot of marijuana side. There's a lot of social media videos coming out of arrests being made of people, unfortunately, high. And I wonder though, the next generation, do they even know what they're putting in their body? I always go back to the cigarette phenomenon of the 50s and 60s, which, I wasn't around for, but everybody was doing it. So it was okay. So it was socially accepted. And I find that with the vaping world these days, whether people know they're putting nicotine or cannabis or both, I'm not sure the full story is being told on that when the purchase is made. They know they need to be 18 or old or whatever the age is. Do they really know what's in that whatever flavor of vape? Like, do they know that there's a drug in there? And I'm not so sure. And I think that's one of the scarier sides of where we're headed over the next 5, 10, 20 years, because all these things are addictive. We all know alcohol is addictive. We know cannabis is mentally addictive. We all know nicotine is physically addictive. These are all addictive drugs. In high school, my day, there was a cigarette smoking section. You need a note from your parents. And I've told my kids that, who are like,
Really?
Yep. It was a public high school in Westchester County, New York, and you need a note from your parents and you could smoke in this outdoor square. People did it, but that was the rule. I don't know what 16-year-old was able to get notes from their parents, and they smoked. Maybe on their break, lunch break, whatever was after school, but there was this little open area section right outside one of the doors. And I tell my kids that, and they're like shocked. It's just like even you were shocked now. And that was in the 90s. I graduated high school in 1995. So that existed in the early 90s. I think it probably disappeared shortly thereafter. I think by the time I graduated, it was still there, but don't quote me. But when you come full circle now, I almost feel like we're heading back to that moment with this situation. Back then, your parents smoked cigarettes in the 80s and 90s. A lot smoked cigarettes. I had a lot of friends whose parents smoked cigarettes. And when I started having children, significantly less, obviously, of our world of parents smoking cigarettes. But then the vaping thing came up, and the vaping thing is super popular, remains that way. And now you have gummies. But to pop a gummy, a little more subtle, and also equally dangerous.
So simplify this. There are people out there who believe that marijuana and other things like that are healthier for you than wine and liquor. So where I am upset with too, as an industry that we are not figuring that out and addressing that. So we're allowing that to happen.
And by the way, just by allowing that to happen, it's basically become facts now. I mean, if you ask anyone, you line up 100 random 20-something, 30-something, 40-something year old, whatever, pick the age group. Is alcohol healthier than cannabis? I think you will probably, out of 100 people, maybe get 5 people to say yes.
I agree with you 100%.
And we don't have the science behind that.
No.
We don't. Maybe it's right, maybe it's wrong, but it's just become a fact because we've become complacent in that. And now it's going to be very difficult to turn that back around without, back to your point, a very aggressive campaign to tell people. We don't have to tell people wine is healthier than cannabis. We just have to tell people that wine is healthier than they think it is right now.
We have to talk about the attributes of our business. If it's not healthy, then me and you should find another business. I don't believe that. And when I was a kid, you had hardcore drinkers coming into our family store who were consistent customers who abused themselves. When I go to other places and see people having wine and liquor as part of a lifestyle, having a cocktail, an Aperol spritz a couple times a week, a glass of wine a night is not going to, in my opinion, ruin your life. I've seen a lot of people live some pretty amazing lives drinking a glass or two of wine a night into their 90s and doing great and all that. So I'm not saying that wine did that for them, but it's interesting how that was part of their lifestyle. Good food, good wine. Getting back to our industry, we're very affected by all this. I remember wine and liquor had definitely dipped in the 80s. I believe liquor sales was down about 30% by gallonage. Wine was up, and wine was perceived to be more of somewhat of a healthier lifestyle. The generation, I would say, post-World War II was still somewhat into beer, but was into wine, having a part of their lifestyle. I think it was people, they just got into it. And a lot of that was because initially things like Riunite Lambrusco and Blue Nun and other things like that got people into wine that may normally have drank Coca-Cola. And it was a little bit sweet. It was fun. So then this thing comes out on 60 Minutes on why do French people who smoke and eat butter and have lots of cheese have less heart disease than Americans. And some of them, they correlated this to red wine. What happened was we went on allocation, red wine, on items like you could not get your hands on Corvo Red, Gallo Hardy Burgundy. Everybody switched to red. They were ripping up vines in California, and people really started drinking more wine. Then, as you know, interestingly, with Mad Men, I think was real help, the cocktail culture, the cocktail cart, and all that. Since Mad Men, there's been way too many distilleries open. And all that. We know that. But when there's way too much bourbon sitting out there, being aged, and the Great Lakes of bourbon, right?
And the irony is, though, of that, I would argue in an easier spot these days with the way social media is to flip the script. We don't need one TV show to do one 6-minute news cycle. We don't need one movie to blast something up. We need some influencers to get out there to start talking about the benefits. Flip the script, which should happen. I feel like you could do it so easily these days just by getting in front of the right influencers. Taylor Swift, if she promoted the wines she was porting at the Garden for her wedding, you'd get in front of hundreds of millions of people globally. I watched the roast of Kevin Hart, which was hosted by Shane Gill. It's very funny, by the way, for anyone who hasn't seen it. He's out there promoting his tequila brand. And he's got the bottle sitting at his roast chair. He's sipping on the tequila. But get out there with that stuff. Make it normalized for people to sip on a good tequila. Make it normalized for them to get a good wine.
Before we wrap this up, I want to add something that's currently successful. Aveline, right? It's Cameron Diaz owns the brand. The brand is up like 30% in 2025. And the brand mentions on the label clearly it's vegan. It has ingredients, alcohol content, location, and more importantly, it has people spending an enormous amount of money. They have hundreds of influencers, I've been told. And folks come in all age groups and ask for this wine.
Are you for putting as much information as possible on the label? 100%.
When you buy food now,
100%.
You know where it comes from. People ask me, they come into the store and they look at Empress Gin and they say, I'm allergic to some things. What's in this?
That's one of our biggest misses. And God, that'll be a part 2 with us. But we are missing out on what people want to know, right? Ridge Winery nailed it when they started listing out all their ingredients. People want to know what they're ingesting into their body and then make a decision. Always a simple, is this wine organic? Like that's the simplest question we get now. And it's just run its course.
You have me back?
Yeah, I'll try.
We will discuss that topic because
the audience is going to decide whether you're going to come back. We're going to put out a poll on this, but I love to have you back. Michael, always a pleasure. Next time, maybe you buy me lunch for this one.
I'll come up to you and we'll have some lunch.
Well, thank you. No, thank you so much. And we'll definitely have you back.
Thank you for having me, Daniel. Great to see you.
A real pleasure. Michael Correra, Michael Towne Wines and Spirits, and the Metropolitan Package Store Association. Peace.
Peace.
Thanks for hanging out with us on this episode of Bottled Up. If this episode gave you a new bottle to try or a new way to think about wine, share it with someone you'd open a bottle with. Subscribe so you don't miss what's next. And as always, drink what you love. I'm Daniel Posner, and we'll see you next time.